Yo, what's good, everybody? And today we got some major news and some major war news. Anyways, enough with the fucking corny ass introduction. Basically, what I'm trying to explain right now is the fact that me and Sanctity's son ran it. The second generation finally came to get revenge after 100 years of this little bitch ducking me. Basically, what Sanctity was ducking on is because during our dialectic, I didn't even agree or appeal to the judge of Sanctity. By the way, it was Kiper who did this. And he gave a fake ass verdict, right? I asked to reign the verdict with the father, but instead he sits there and leaves the GC because he doesn't want to run it. What's funny is that I asked for a neutral server, right? I sent him a neutral server. He said this wasn't a neutral server. I asked what's going to be the substance behind this, as there needs to be a necessity for an assertion to have a more probable cause and more likely to be the case for something. As going by analytical observations, for something to be more likely the case, there needs to be justification and rational analysis for that to be likely. Since there was no substance or justification for the assertion that he made that it was not a neutral server, the proposition itself is going to be more likely probable for the F, since the proposition has T and F. Basically, what T and F is a truth and false value of a proposition. Something that we can prove or can't prove or justify. Justifying, it goes in hand with reasoning, which is basically the totality, which is a whole. It basically makes up rationalism, which is logical conclusions off of more like analytical type things to be the case. So, for example, like an analogy, X says that Hulk is stronger than Superman. We would need justification and substance as to why. Substance is basically a necessity for something. So because we need the necessity for the justification to give rational motivation, if X, or actually Y, would be the substance needed, we can't say X is more likely to have that T value. It's going to be more probable that the F value has more consideration and interpretation within the linguistics of the proposition to be the case. Because there is no substance or rational justification for said thing. So because we observe this said claim and assertion, but there's no justification to come to a rational conclusion, we can't really say that it's more likely to be the case. Anyways, going off that, I give the analogy for that. I basically had a dialectic with Kiper. Basically, Sanctity's son and ass fucking son. Anyways, he came to me saying that I was a retard, this and that, trying to sound smart. So basically, I debated on the proposition that I was trying to sound smart. I asserted that it was a presupposition because he's going off a presumption by a probability. He didn't give substance or justification for why that would be the case. So it's more likely that it's a presupposition and presumed from said probability, which is more likely not to be the case. He would have to justify why it is accurate and not just a presupposition. Because if we presuppose something, we can't really go off, say that's rationally conclusion or a rational conclusion, as we need logical sounding for something to be the case. Presupposing something is not directly saying it's going to be the case or prove why it would have T over F. So since we need that same rational and appealing substance for necessity for that, we can't really say the necessity exists for said T. So it's more likely to be a presupposition than it is to be the truth through inductive reasoning. So basically, this guy named Kiper couldn't really do anything. He just kept repeating himself. He basically kind of appealed to Sanctity for a judge thing, by the way, which I never agreed to or appealed to, as I stated before in the introduction. And he tried to get the verdict. He left the GC after I kicked his ass. I asked Sanctity to run the verdict, and he left the GC. So I told him his ideas would go on the tube, the YouTube, the Jimmy Tube, and basically he made a server where it was basically going to be like me versus him. So I added my spectators, and this dude wouldn't join the VC. He basically evaded me and blocked me again, because this dude is a little pussy. So to say that I practically slammed the entire generation. I saved my reputation. I beat the shit out of these low tiers. By the way, they follow Exility, so it's not a surprise that they're fucking morons. Anyways, yeah, I'll be providing the screenshots. Thank you all for watching. Now, on to another point I'm going to address. Basically, it's the fact that this goes under a prescriptive scenario, and he made tons of presuppositions, and especially about something saying that if we are to use the word substance wrong, because he was asking me to define what substance is. I asked for an obligation. He said using my wording or me positing the word would define as like an obligation. That isn't an obligation. An obligation would have to exist for something. Just me positing a word, say like I posit hi, would that be an obligation for me to explain why I said hello? Not exactly. So, anyways, going off this said thing, he basically presupposed that the word in this context, in the possible scenario, based off probability, would be false. If we use the word wrong, that's still presupposing that we use the word in the context that it would be wrong. So basically, he basically like just went off the presupposition that my terminology was wrong because I didn't posit a definition. So him basically saying that is wrong is basically just going to be a presupposition within that said scenario. So because he didn't give justification or like substance for why this necessity attribute would exist to the example he gave within the possible scenario of if it's going to be more probably true, we could just say it's through inductive reasoning and rational observation to go off that conclusion. It's more likely to be the case that he was false. So because we already got through that and basically slammed his proposition, we could just say that he's pretty ass at this point. And yeah,